Here is another way to know if something is not good for you when it's categorized as therapy. Therapy. What is the definition of therapy? Treatment intended to relieve or heal a disorder. The treatment of mental or psychological disorders by psychological means. They have immunotherapy. Let's see, what other therapies they can talk about? Integrative and holistic therapy, humanistic therapy, cognitive therapy, behavior therapy, psychoanalysis and psychodynamic therapy. Let's see. Let's look at some more. I'm going to belabor this point. Oh Lordy, here we go. We have the mental health therapy. Ouch. Hold on. Therapy. I'm going to look at types of therapy. Types of therapies. Oh yeah, okay, so here we go. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, interpersonal therapy, eye movement and desensitization and reprocessing therapy, behavioral activation therapy, counseling therapy, guided self-help therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, talking therapies. Let's see what other therapies that are out there. Family therapy, emotion-focused therapy, group therapy, psychodynamic therapy, mindfulness-based therapies, interpersonal therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. Then there is the immunotherapies and whatever. Oh my gosh. Then there's the physical therapy, mental therapy, psychological, sociological therapy. Okay, so you get the point, right? Therapy. So therapies, yes, physical therapy, yes. All of these therapies, anything with the word therapy that's at the end, okay, it really does rape the body and your mind. I know it sounds very, very controversial, but it is, because of what it's doing is it's inducing. It's basically bringing up all of that toxic energy, bringing up the PTSD to surface, bringing up the toxins to surface, just like when you're doing manipulation on somebody. And then guess what? The body creates antibodies and it destroys you over time. That's right, Christina Morris. That's cool. So no matter what kind of therapy that you're doing, I don't care what it is. If you're doing a therapy, you're bringing up natural killer cells. So when someone has a PTSD trauma and they have to go see a psychologist, psychotherapist, whatever, psychiatrist, and they're bringing up all of these PTSD traumas, guess what? You're bringing up antigen. You're bringing up antigen. You're not healing at the cellular level. No, you're bringing up antigen, and guess what? The body creates natural killer cells. That's why these are called cures. Cures anesthetize you. Just like on the TV, when you're seeing all of these cures on TV, they're all anesthetizing you with the natural killer cells. CBD oil is a type of therapy. It induces antibodies, natural killer cells. You go to physical therapy, you're manipulating the body, whatever. You're creating natural killer cells. Yeah, you may feel a little bit better. So when you're going to a chiropractic, they're releasing all of this negative energy into your body. You're not processing it out of your system because you ain't doing jelly juice. You talk a good game about you're doing jelly, but you're not doing jelly juice. And then you're basically, you are reinfecting your body. You're actually killing your body with all of these therapies. Every single therapy that you are doing, you are contributing to your demise. And even faster. So the more therapy you bring up, yeah, you may feel better. No different than taking a drug like meth or whatever else. You may feel better for a minute, but no, what you're actually doing is you're anesthetizing yourself because you're inducing natural killer cells. You're inducing antibodies. When you're doing adrenaline rushes, and people take all of their, their different coffees, right? And their different monsters and energy drinks and their, their lattes and their pumpkin spice stuff, or they go on these rides, these crazy rides, which I can't handle anymore. My husband, he calls me old, right? Because I don't like to listen to loud music. I don't do anything that is going to be inducing like major amount of endorphins, major adrenaline and stuff. Sometimes arguments also, when you get into argument, you debate back and forth, it induces antibodies. It's adrenaline rushing. Adrenaline rush creates antibodies. It's natural killer cells. It's that fight or flight mode, right? When you have so much of that on a continuous basis, it does destroy you. But you feel better about being destroyed. That's what it's so deceptive about therapies. Regardless of what therapy you're doing, it is anesthetizing you. That's what natural killer cells do. They anesthetize you. And every single therapy, I don't care what, if you have to call it a therapy, it is inducing antibodies. And if you are not processing those antibodies out in a correct manner, biochemical wise, and not by just taking CBD oil, if you're not doing Jilly Juice, if you're not taking in the right elements, the right combination of elements, then you are contributing to your own demise. So if you're not on Jilly Juice and you are eating crappy foods, you're creating natural killer cells on a daily basis. That's why the processed food industry is killing people exponentially and expeditiously too. So that is why with the Jilly Juice protocol, you're transitioning from those natural killer cells protocol inducing to then now finally getting in the positive elements to deal with all of those natural killer cells that you are creating on a daily basis. And then you're going to process them out of the body, and you're going to fix the mutations that don't trigger those natural killer cells. Yes, you'll induce autophagy. So yes, those natural killer cells are going to go after those mutations and those pathogens. And then the nutrition in the Jilly Juice protocol, in the recipe, is then going to then regenerate and rebuild those broken and damaged cell structures. Because how many of you who know people, and I have mutual friends that are so negative and so bitter, and they're all talking about having sex and how all this tantric stuff that they're doing, kundalini and all this whatever, it's all natural killer cells that they're creating. Just the act of sex induces endorphins, induces adrenaline. It creates natural killer cells, and then you got to go and then counter that. That is why people who are on the Jilly Juice protocol have a lower sex drive, because they don't need to go and destroy their body to create a child. Because that's essentially what reproduction is the fact that your body is breaking down, and then you got to go and carry that genetic line forward. You got to go and reproduce, because your genetic line is about to be snuffed out, because you're in all of these therapies. Now, I know this is going to go against, what my mom does, what my dad did, as far as the biotech, but it's all true. People that get into therapies of sorts have their own unresolved issues that they're trying to work out. So when they practice therapy on someone, they're practicing therapy on themselves. That's how they manage to get through in life. And then they get rid of all of the things that are triggering them. And then it's like therapy is a drug for people, whether it's doing therapy on somebody or receiving therapy, everybody is getting anesthetized. You're all getting your natural killer cells produced. You're creating antibodies between just even the back and forth. So therapy right there, it is, there's the word, therapeutic. It's the rape of whatever it is that you're therapeutizing, whatever, therapizing. Now, I only knew about therapy because I was raised with it. And then the only way I can get through and manage to get to the next level of my life was to take therapy, because that's all I knew. I didn't know how to change the biochemistry of my body. So all I knew was to go see somebody and then purge out some stuff. But it's not really purging out. I reinfected myself. And I created all these natural killer cells that anesthetized, made me feel better. It was like taking CBD. So all these therapies that people are doing, going to see somebody, taking CBD oil or taking an MLM or doTERRA or all of that, you're just creating natural killer cells all over the place. And then what you're doing is whatever therapy that you're practicing on other people, you're actually creating that onto yourself. Like what we do is a projection of who we are. So if you're all into sex, and sex is the biggest thing, and you're all into Kundalini and Tantric, then you're projecting your demise onto other people. When you're saying, oh, sex and this is so natural. Yeah, it's natural for a dying body. Your therapy that you're practicing on other people, whatever it is, it's a projection of how unresolved you are. So you have to keep in with that inducing of the natural killer cells to keep anesthetizing yourself. No different than having to take CBD oil every single day. No different than taking all of your drugs every single day to keep you sane until you pass away. Because God forbid, should you stop therapeuticizing other people as well as yourself, you're going to actually have to face who you are and how you operate in this world. So I totally get it now. Now this is another way to know if something is detrimental, is when they call it therapy. So it's antibody. I mean, these are all the big key words. I need to write them down. I should write them down. Where the hell is my pen? Okay, here we go. So therapy, antibody, antibiotic, autoimmunity. What is it? Natural killer cells, drugs, plant-based therapies. All right, David Hoff, later, dude, later. I'm not going to deal with anybody trying to refute me right now on my Facebook, because you have to read my book to understand where I'm coming from. I'm not going to debate this with people. So David Hoff, later. Yeah, and he's a patented solar roller, a solar factory, whatever the hell, aquatic environmental biology. Yeah, he's trained by the system. He's trained to anesthetize people with all of their therapies. So goodbye. I'm sure he's a proponent for pot and all the different drugs. California, gotta love California. Yeah, it's all palliative care. Yeah, so all of these therapies that are in the system, diets too, yes, it's anesthetizing. But I mean, diet is such a vague word, diets. It's a vague thing. Because they can call jelly juice a diet. I mean, it's just so vague, it's not even very specific. So, yeah, so anything that is a therapy, regardless of what it is, okay? Because the natural killer cells are not going to differentiate. They're there only to go after a known pathogen. And those known pathogens are mutations. But if you're not fixing yourself, if you're not actually regenerating those cells, then that known pathogen, which is a mutation, which could be the missing heart, or not missing lung, a missing organ, missing whatever, it's going to keep producing natural killer cells, and that basically is you, because you are, I mean, it's going to, and it's going to go after the pathogen, and you being mutated is a pathogen. You being mutated as a human is anti-life. It totally is. And people that come onto my Facebook don't need to say anything that are new. They need to go and read my book first. And then what you're coming on to right now is all of my research. So I'm not going to take you from 1 to 60. And he can stay in the system, or he can go get my book. So yeah, so all of these therapies are basically natural killer cells inducing. I don't care what you think, how well it's marketed. Some of you are super into the MLMs. I saw one lady come in. I'm going to check her out, her profile. Because I see her all the time going on live. I'm not going to say who her name is because I don't want to totally call her out. But I want to check her out. Because she's always on Facebook Live. And I don't ever listen to her posts or her lives. I hardly listen to anybody's, but. So what is she promoting? Huh. Okay, I don't know. Maybe she's not even promoting anything like. Oh, okay. All right, never mind. Huh. I don't know. Yeah, so that's fine. I'm not gonna. Yeah. So all of these, like even all of these different lotions and all of these different things, I mean, lotions and yeah, I mean, I use shampoos that do probably create antibodies, but I have enough of my protocol to offset those antibodies that are causing those natural killer cells and everything to then go after the body. But over time, natural killer cells do create, when there's enough of them produced, they do induce autoimmunity or death and aging. Oh yeah, and doctor, see, and here you go. I mean, she may know who I'm talking about once I read this. It's about this Lindy's miracle. Today's beautiful child of mine had exploratory surgery to see if her body has any signs of Crohn's disease. It's about taking a molecule and reversing her Crohn's disease. So what they did was they created natural killer cells to go after that Crohn's disease pathogen. Didn't, regenerate the cells to figure out why it is it happened to begin with. And what they did was they slowed down the aging process. When you take away a disease, whatever it is, whether it's Crohn's disease or lymphoma or lupus or autism, when someone has a disease, that is the acceleration of the death process. So when you actually reverse a disease, you just created more natural killer cells to go after that disease. But in the meantime, you're creating a bunch of those because you're going to have more disease because you don't know how to actually reinforce your immune system correctly. So you have those accumulation of natural killer cells or antibodies in your body that will then cause you to age. You will see your different systems break down. And so that is why it is very hard for someone like that guy, David Hoff, to wrap his mind around the fact that therapy is actually the rape of the body and the mind. It is the person who is doing the therapy's way of dealing with life as well as the person taking the therapy. They're not actually healing anything. They're anesthetizing each other. It is a quid pro quo. Whenever you do a reading on somebody, if you're like one of those new agers that are doing readings on people because you're trying to have them get clear, you're actually inducing your own shortcomings on them. You're projecting your situation on them as well as them on you. And then you're both anesthetizing each other because you're not doing anything on a physiological level with the right positive elements. You're bringing up all that negative energy, and then that negative energy comes up, and then those natural killer cells come in play. Okay, so Giuseppe, I'm taking him off my Facebook because he's talking about detoxes. Block Giuseppe Capilli, sorry. I'm actually doing a lot of multitasking right now. So just taking off these holistic people. Anyone in the holistic industry that's doing all these detoxes and all of these pills, powders, and supplements, they're all inducing natural killer cells. They're all creating antibodies. That's what they're doing. They are creating antibodies. And so when you create so many antibodies over time, it does destroy the body. And they don't get it because they're all into the stupid conspiracy bullshit. Yeah, we know that chemtrails happen. There's a lot of negative elements. We know that there is fires and droughts and storms, and some areas are a lot more pathogenic than others. So when you know that California is pathogenic and you're already immunocompromised, and maybe you just started Jilly Juice, maybe it's time for you to start making your way out of California, because California ain't going to change. They're doing some major restructuring in California. So if you truly want to live, get the hell out of California, or you be doing gallons and gallons and gallons of Jilly Juice to offset all of those pathogens that are inducing all these antibodies, these natural killer cells. So yeah, so the therapy is the destruction of your body by anesthetizing it with natural killer cells. Chew on that. All right. And yeah, those of you who are new, you need to go and read my book. Read about Jilly Juice. Read about everything about Jilly Juice. I give you guys at least, the structure of where I'm coming from. JillyJuice.com, JILLYJUICE.com. I talk about the role of the human body. I talk about the role of salt, the role of lactobacillus, the role of the water and the nutrients. I talk about the different things that may happen while you're on Jilly Juice, the healing symptoms, how you can manage those healing symptoms with, using the juice. Okay? I talk about all of that. But if you're going to go into all these therapies, whether it's chiropractic therapy or psychotherapy or psychiatry or any type of therapy, no matter what it is, Ayurvedic therapy, Ayurvedic, I don't even know how you say that. Some of these words are so like, oh, those all create natural killer cells. They induce antibodies because you are bringing up negative energy that the body has to do something with it. The only way it can protect it is you tap into your immune system, your innate immune system. Those natural killer cells come from the innate immune system. The adaptive immune system is able to, create the antibodies, or not create, how is it? The adaptive knows how to adapt to the current environment, but the innate immune system creates those antibodies. So I got to do that. Oh my God, I got to do so. Well, it's the same thing. The innate and the adaptive immune system, they work interchangeably because the body adapts to your environment. Homeostasis sets in. Yes, it gets the upset of homeostasis, and then the body adapts, right? The antibodies get created to go after the pathogens. And then if those pathogens aren't out there anymore, then that's fine. It doesn't need to create those antibodies. But if you have pathogens inside of you, like your A and B blood type, which is the antigen, and you have mutations inside of you, mutations create and trigger those antibodies. Because mutations and foreign objects like steel, like rods and screws and mesh and all of the transplants, those are all foreign objects. It will all trigger and induce antibodies. So if you have a rod or a screw or any of that, transvaginal mesh or bladder slings, birth control implants, all of that create antibodies because it's a foreign object. That's how the body protects itself. Then you are destroying yourself. When you're doing Jilly Juice, I talk about how the foreign objects get dealt with. the body will find a way to get it out of your system or protect it with cartilage, okay? And then push it to the side because it's now finally repaired that area that you needed that foreign object. When somebody has a transplant, like a heart transplant or a lung transplant, the body creates antibodies to try to, that's why you lower the immune system to anesthetize it, but still antibodies get created, and that those antibodies, well, shit, that's where things get really trippy. So yeah, so you don't have many antibodies get created because you lowered your immune system. It's the nutrition. Holy crap. I gotta do some research on that. So when something gets rejected, it's because you have antibodies that will go after that pathogen and shut it down. You lower your immune system, so that way you don't create all those antibodies. But then you get all the cancer, disease, and chronic illness, which creates then more antibodies. That's when death occurs. That's why people who have transplants in their body don't live very long, because the body does eventually shut down. This is very complicated for a lot of people. Very complicated. So yeah, so your adaptive and your innate immune system, they work hand in hand together. And you lower your immune system enough to allow that transplant to work so long, you're still allowing more, that's why they can't be around. That's why they can't be around, people at all, because there's so much, pathogens in the population. And then why that transplant doesn't get kicked out, because antibodies go after foreign objects and purge them, and it leaves them open. So then, find someone that has a heart transplant. Anybody in your world that has a heart transplant or a lung transplant or whatever, see if you can figure out what other issues they have. And if they had transplants for a very long time, I've heard that the people are in pain. Hold on, sugar. I'll let you out in a minute. I'm going to look up transplant. Hold on. See, I'm going to Google. Google. How long does a transplant patient live? I hear you, sugar. I hear you. There you go. How long you live after a heart transplant depends on how many factors, including age, general health, and response to the transplant. Recent figures show that 75% of the heart transplant patients live at least 5 years after surgery. Nearly 85% return to work or other activities they previously enjoyed, but they don't tell you how long. Okay, what is the life expectancy? 10 years. Okay, results. Survival rate 1, 5, and 10 years after transplantation were 87%, 77%, and 57% respectively, and the average life expectancy was 9.16 years. The mental QOL of patients 10 years after heart transplantation was similar to that among the general population. So you're looking at about 10 years, if that, relative to your situation. So they're not creating enough antibodies. If they are able to live 10 years, they're not able to create enough antibodies to reject it, right? Because they're not strengthening their immune system to regenerate. But they're not. So the NK cells, they're going after the body because it's aging, but it's not rejecting it, because there's something else that we reject that extra. That's probably where the adaptive immune system comes into play. So the adaptive immune system adapts the situation, and then the innate immune system goes after those pathogens, or goes after the the adaptive, the innate antibodies. But antibodies are natural killer cells. It's the same thing because they kill things. But you lower your immune system, you don't create as many natural killer cells, but the body's still open. But I mean, let me see something else. There's something that I'm trying to figure out here. Hold on. Sugar, I will be with you in a minute, Sugar. I will be with you in a minute. Hold on. Hold on, Sugar. What other? Heart transplant. I'm thinking that, you know what, they slowed down. Okay, here we go. The reason probably why 10 years after is they slow down, they lower the immune system so they don't produce as many natural killer cells, but they do get produced, but over time it does. Okay, that makes sense. Because no matter what, so you lower the immune system, which is what they're doing. Okay, here we go. I figured it out. I will get to you in a minute, Sugar, okay? I will get to you in a minute. When you're anesthetizing your body, with CBD oil and you reverse some kind of disease, right? So you shortened your death trajectory because you reverse that disease with the CBD oil. But you still die. That's why you see herbalists and all that die already in the system. So you may not die as fast if you have that disease, but then you still produce natural killer cells, and over time, it's the accumulation of the natural killer cells that destroy you, that cause the aging process. So you have a transplant patient who then, if you were to up the immunity, then it would reject that transplant and then try to regrow the heart and purge that transplant out. But no, they lower the immune system so you can keep that transplant in, and then not as many natural killer cells are created to go after that. So then over like about 10 years of time, so a person could have a heart transplant and be taking CBD oil to keep their immune system lowered. And then in 10 years, which is about long enough for, for a person to have that kind of mutation, then those NK cells that have accumulated destroys them. That makes sense. Holy crap, that was a thought. So you're seeing how I'm thinking. You're seeing what I'm trying to figure out. How the hell do I explain this? And that's around this therapy. So this is a thought process in motion when you're on Jilly Juice. You start thinking and trying to figure out, okay, how does that work? And that's the same thing, yeah. So when you lower your immune system, no different than CBD oil, because you have a heart transplant, a lowered immune system doesn't allow as many antibodies to get created, but enough do. But you're slowing down the process of antibodies, because when you charge up your immune system is when you create all those antibodies to go after the foreign object. But then also in turn, you have to rebuild those broken cell structures. You just can't turn up the antibodies and not rebuild, because you're not keeping the balance. Hold on a second. All right, Sugar, hold on. Hello, Diana. Hello, everybody. Okay, so therapy. Any type of therapy, no matter what it is, it lowers your immune system because you are creating natural killer cells. And natural killer cells don't differentiate between good cells and bad cells. When you have a pathogen, right, one pathogen, whatever it is, it'll go after that pathogen because it's a foreign object. But when you have so many pathogens in your body and so many mutations in your body, all of these natural killer cells are going to be being produced, and it's going to go after everything, even you, because you are that mutation. You are that foreign object in a lot of ways. Your unresolved mutations, so all of your PTSD, all of your, all of your crazy, stressful experiences from the past, present, and even future that's floating around in your body, those all create antibodies. Your surface marker antigen in your A and B blood supply, or A and B blood types, is all creating antibodies on a continuous basis. And those continuous creation of antibodies is the aging process. The body was not meant to be in a fight or flight mode forever until you die. So, so with all of these therapies that they're doing, they're inducing more antibodies. They're not healing people at the cellular level, really, truly. They're just getting you by so you can get to the next level, so you can still go to work. So yeah, you had a trauma when you were like 5 or 10 years old. You go to therapy 10 years later, and that trauma comes to surface. But no, it doesn't disappear. Just like when you go and get Reiki or something done to you, manipulate it, it doesn't disappear. The body reabsorbs it, and then antibodies get created to protect the body from it, and then you're anesthetized. It's like an anesthetizing agent. It's like taking drugs. It's like taking drugs. Therapy is like taking drugs, but using your own like adrenochrome. You guys heard of adrenochrome? I'm not gonna go into how that's being, taken, because that's all hormones, right? But that's essentially what they're doing out there. And then I guess Gary said palliative care. Palliative care. I know I've heard of it. Do I know the definition? No, but I'm going to look it up. It is a specialized medical care for people with serious illnesses. The type of care is focused on providing relief from the symptoms and stress of serious illness. The goal is to improve quality of life for both the patient and the family. Yeah, when you anesthetize yourself, you're taking a seat. Some are more socially acceptable than others. Going to a therapist is way more socially acceptable than taking a drug like CBD or smoking pot. Doesn't mean that they're any different. They're both anesthetizing in some way. It both makes you feel better, and you think you're healed, right? But you're not. But some of these therapies that are dealing with traumas from the past, present, and future, they're all the same. They're all inducing antibodies, but they make it sound like it's different. It's not different. It's just social acceptance. You get a degree to be able to anesthetize the population versus somebody go and get some street drug. Both are detrimental to the body. Therapists are aging. Psychiatrists have died. I used to work for a family that had a psychiatrist in the family, because they don't deal with actual cell regeneration. They don't actually heal you from the cellular level. They anesthetize you. Therapists anesthetize their people. That's what they do. All the therapies, no matter what kind of therapy you're doing, chiropractic therapy, whatever, they all anesthetize the body. They're basically, drugging the body. So yeah, therapy is the rape of the mind and the body. Sorry, Mom. Hold on. Okay, go get your ball. Go get your ball. Get your ball. This is why some foods out there are very anesthetizing, because it induces endorphins, it induces antibodies, it creates a feeling of just, it kind of drugs the body. Some foods drug the body. Thanksgiving drugs the body. If I want to go do drugs, I'll go eat a Thanksgiving dinner. It induces antibody. It creates this calming effect, right? And then, well, yeah, I mean, it's a drug, right? Thanksgiving is a drug because all those comfort foods. So, yeah, wow. So therapies and antibodies and antibiotics and autoimmunity and cancer disease and chronic illness and all of that, NK cells and drugs, all of that. And even talk therapy, social therapy. I know people in San Francisco that do social therapy. They anesthetize each other. When you're doing, hand readings, you're doing all that. You're trying to like measure chakras. Okay. You're doing over the phone consultations and you're not even really implementing, a real major biochemical change that is non-herbal. No, all of that induces anesthetizing natural killer cells. This is where the lines do get drawn. I thought when I was in Portugal that I can be able to collaborate and bridge the gap between the holistic world and Jilly Juice, but I never could. I tried to do that. I really wanted to bridge that gap. But when I did talk to this one lady over there in Portugal that was all into this trauma type of therapy, she was like this. Not like literally, but her demeanor was like this. I was like kryptonite. I'm like kryptonite against anyone that does Kundalini or yoga. Because they know what's going on. Biochemically, their gut knows that what I'm saying is a direct conflict of what they're doing. They're practicing all the death types of protocols, but in therapy, temporarily anesthetizing you. So there's no way I can bridge the gap between me and the holistic Kundalini, tantric, yoga, whatever. There's no way. And I don't ever want to. Now, when it comes to what Kevin's going to be doing, but with the different energy stuff, I get it to a certain extent. When he talks about maybe the physiological processes and then try to use, then try to find a way to bridge those things together. But that is going to be a very interesting fine line that I will definitely be focusing on and figuring out exactly. Because all therapies are about inducing natural killer cells. And if they're not implementing Jilly Juice, then all they're doing is anesthetizing their patients until the patient decides to pass away at some point. Because what is energy healing without the biochemistry really truly being changed in a positive way? Not this alchemy, because I've heard someone say, oh yeah, you're dealing with alchemy. And I don't like the word alchemy because it has a definite connotation to the New Age world. Because what are you mixing? People are doing alchemy with herbs. I saw somebody on my Facebook who used the word alchemy in direct reference to all of her little herb mixtures. I'm like, no wonder I got triggered by alchemy, because relative to your perspective of what it is you're brewing, alchemy can mean so many different things. So I don't even want to even touch the word alchemy on my Facebook at all, or with the Jilly Juice. It's not alchemy. I'm not an alchemist, because that is a loaded word with lots of baggage, and my protocol isn't that mainstream enough for people to differentiate and understand. No, they won't know. They'll only look at alchemy in the sense of herbs and herbalists and occultists. So I don't even want to use the word alchemy. It's like even food. People don't know what food is. Plant-based, when I see people talk about plant-based therapies, as soon as they say plant-based therapy, I know exactly where they're coming from. They're coming from the holistic herbalist world. And they're completely nixed off my Facebook because they are bringing in their programming. That's why anyone comes through my Facebook, they have to shut up. If they don't shut up and they want to come in and just impose their belief system, they're done with. They won't have any. They'll have to go read my book if they really truly want to know. And then they got to write me an email and say, hey, I'm sorry I spoke too soon. I was trying to impose my belief system, my programming from academia onto you. But they won't do that because they think they're right, and that's fine. They can be the example of what not to do. We need a lot of examples of what not to do, you guys. So sometimes not everybody deserves my information. I mean, everybody does, but people who are really think they know everything, they will speak before they actually understand, and then they can be the example. So they will be the example. You guys will have a lot of examples and a lot of data. They're going to be your guinea pigs. Everyone that speaks too soon on my Facebook, and you know who they are because they spoke too soon and I deleted them, watch them, friend request them. Watch them over time. Because what they do is going to confirm everything that we're talking about. I already have people that I'm watching, and they're my friends and family. Thanks, Christina. But that's how I came up with this whole protocol, was watching everyone around me. I wasn't trying to listen to all the rhetoric because the rhetoric became really tiresome and redundant. Even a long time ago, before I even knew about vaccines and whatever, I knew that I had to face the pain. That's why I never turned to drinking or doing tons of drugs to escape. I've always wanted to face whatever situation I had because I knew innately that was the way to do it. Now, how I went about doing it wasn't exactly right, but I didn't know that. It was what you had. It was the information I had at the time. And then when those things don't work, or you find that your body's breaking down, even with all of those alleged good therapies, which they're not, you start going then a different direction. And you start exploring, you start trying. And some people will try everything, and then they may not even make it because they're on maybe there's 50 million protocols out there, and they're 55, and they're on protocol 55,000, and there's still a million, and they still haven't learned. So they'll die before they get through every single protocol before they get to me. And that right there is what you're going to see in some of the population that speak too soon on my Facebook. They will be your example. So don't worry about who gets it, who doesn't. It doesn't matter, because the ones that get it, you'll see them as an example, and the ones that don't get it will be another example for you to then take that data and do something with it. And if you pass away, then you're not able to do anything with that data, and then that's fine. You'll be somebody else's lesson. But if you happen to live indefinitely, then all that data is going to be amazing, and then you're able to share that with people that are willing to listen to you. So everybody is a lesson. Everything is a lesson if you know how to look at how to extrapolate the data. And that is an art, and not everybody's going to be able to do that because their biochemistry will not allow them to. But if you're on my Facebook right now watching me, you have now a choice, but your biochemistry is then going to determine what you do with that choice. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.